Mr. Chairman, thank you both for being here. You're both patriots, and thank you for your service to the country. I want to maybe get back to this question of exploring the limits of that Title X authority, but I wanted to build upon a question preview that Senator Cardin referenced, and that's on the existing authorities in North Korea. President has talked about our military options, should we choose to use them in North Korea, and I just wanted to make sure that we understand the range of authority that the President has today with respect to potential military operations in the Korean Peninsula. Would you both agree that absent a strike against the United States or the imminent threat of a strike against the United States, the administration would need congressional authorization to engage in military activity against North Korea?
Well, Senator, I think it would depend, again, on all circumstances, and it's a fact-based decision. I think clearly today we're there under Article 2 authorities, and Article 2 is really, you know, if you look at historically, it's been grounded in kind of two criteria. One is to protect United States persons, property, and national security interest. And secondly, it's been used for circumstances that do not rise to the level of a declaration of war. I think that is the circumstance we have in the peninsula today in Korea. So it is a question of the threat, the imminent threat, the nature of the threat, as to whether the President then would exercise his authorities without the need of further congressional authorization. So it'll be fact-based, and all of those will have to be considered.
Secretary Mattis?
Yes, I believe under Article 2, he has a responsibility, obviously, to protect the country, and if there was not time, I could imagine him not consulting or consulting as he's doing something along the line, for example, of what we did at Sharat Airfield here in Syria when we struck that, and the Congress was notified immediately. This was after the chemical weapons use by the Assad regime. But in this case of North Korea, it would be a direct, imminent, or actual attack on the United States that I think Article 2 would apply.
I think I would agree that if it's an attack or an imminent attack, and we can all split hairs as to what the definition of imminent would be, but let me try to get to the bottom of that. Would the possession of a weapon, a nuclear weapon, capable of reaching the United States fulfill the definition of an imminent threat to the United States? Would the simple possession of a weapon that is capable of doing great damage to the United States be sufficient to qualify as an imminent threat?
Well, again, I'm always reluctant to get into too many hypotheticals, because the possession could be sitting in an underground, not ready to be used condition, or possession could be sitting upright on a tail about to be launched. So again, I think it would have to be fact-based and given consideration as to the circumstances around an imminent threat.
Secretary Mattis?
I fully agree with Secretary Tillerson. I think this is an area that a number of facts would have to bear on the problem in order to give you a complete answer, Senator.
I thank you both for your answers. I think the primary fact is whether there is an attack or an imminent attack. I think other than those two facts, you need to come to Congress for authorization, but I appreciate your answers. Secretary Mattis, I wanted to drill down a little bit more on the Title X authority. You certainly have Title X authority to conduct training missions abroad. You're using that authority in Niger. Today, you've properly notified Congress. You referenced President Obama's notification. But how do you answer concerns that our constituents may have when it looks as if a training mission is something more than training, that we are actually putting American troops out in harm's way, partnered with local forces, engaged in activity that imperils U.S. men and women? To many folks, this didn't look like a training mission. It did look like we were side by side with domestic forces, but we were actually helping them carry out pretty critical mission components. How do you address concerns that some of our constituents have that a training mission can very easily morph into something that looks much more like operational and offensive capabilities that are unauthorized by Congress?
It's a great question, Senator. When you look at why did President Obama send troops there, why did President Trump send troops there, it's because we sense that as the physical caliphate is collapsing, the enemy is trying to move somewhere. And so those troops are there. Most of them are providing, frankly, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance support, intelligence support, refueling support. There are some doing this train and advise mission. In this case, we're trying to build up the internal defenses of another country so they can do this job on their own. The French have carried the burden for this, have taken severe casualties at times in this mission. We're supporting them. But in this case, since April, I believe, and we'll get the specific numbers once the investigation comes in, over 24 patrols in this area with no enemy contact. I think it was reasonable to think they could go out and continue training these troops without the idea they're going into direct combat. But that's not a complete answer. I need to wait until I get the investigation to fully appraise you.
But you referenced the falling apart of the caliphate at the beginning of that answer, and so that suggests that this might not be a Title X authority mission. This might be a 2001 AUMF mission, and if that's the case, then, okay, you're not...
I misled you there.
Okay.
This is a Title X train and advise, and we're trying to prepare them if, as the caliphate falls apart, their country comes under attack so they can defend their own population. You'll remember Boko Haram nearby and the 276 girls they kidnapped. This is a real problem up in that region, and we're trying to get them in a position where they can defend themselves and do it according with law of armed conflict in a very complex environment. This is tough training, sir.